Good evening, guitar obsessives. I'm Sean Keaveney of BBC Radio 6 Music, primarily, but since 1987 I've been a colossal, undisputed, dyed-in-the-wool guitar obsessive. And so it fair gave me the vapors when arguably, who would argue, the greatest guitar brand in the world, Fender, asked me to help them launch a brand new product. So here we are, known for over 60 years for their electric guitar innovations, excellent acoustic ranges, amps, effects, and more. They recently introduced a whole new kind of electronically advanced acoustic instrument, the Acoustasonic. First was the tele version, then the Strat version. Today we can finally fully reveal the all-new Fender Acoustasonic Jazzmaster. You don't want to hear me playing it. We're going to be talking to three brilliant musicians who've been living with it, about their experience with it, and as well as two of the great throbbing-brained geniuses who helped us get it here. But first of all, an artist who's been churning out hits. He's been filling arenas, this guy, for over 20 years with his band Feeder. He's got a brand new guitar. Jaguar, but it's not. It's a Jazzmaster. A brand new Acoustasonic. Let's hear what he thinks of it. It's Grant Nicholas. Hello, Grant.
Hey, Sean. How you doing?
Well, I'm just so stoked. I'm so excited to be doing this thing with. When I say it out loud, it just seems surreal. Fender, Grant. Fender.
I know. What a name. Legendary Fender.
Well, the obvious thing to ask is, you know, I mean, I think I know why you named yourselves Feeder, but have you ever thought how much it sounds like Fender?
Yeah, it's only sort of one kind of, well, it's only one letter difference, isn't it? I mean, actually, we did try and use the Fender logo once. We were told probably best not to use that one. It did look quite cool, but it was yeah, it was just sort of, you know, my love of Fender really put it into the Feeder logo. But yeah, I'm sure there's a few bootlegs out there somewhere.
Yeah. There's an immediate cease and desist.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I want to say that you guys have been in a band together for 27 years. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 27, 28 years now. Yeah, it's been a while because we started in the sort of early 90s. So, you know, been around a long time. Underground.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, especially having been in radio for nearly 20 years. I mean, I don't want to say that I've written quite a few PRS checks for you over the years, but we've played the hell out of a lot of those super hits, Grant, and they always go down incredibly well. I mean, when did you first fall in love with the electric guitar?
I started playing guitar when I was about 10. I'm completely self-taught, so I don't really read music. I can read sort of chords a bit, but I sort of learned by ear, sat in my bedroom playing along to Police records and lots of 70s bands, and, you know, lots of rock, anything from Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. I was really into a lot of punk rock as well. I was really into the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. So I used to just sit down and try and work out how to play the chords and how to tune the guitar, which did take me a while. But it was just a good way of learning. And yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few players out there that learn by ear. I think it's quite a common thing. And it was just something that I really enjoyed doing. And I always had a real passion for music since a very early age. It was either going to be drums or guitar, but I picked guitar.
Well, you're right. You know what? We sort of have echoing circumstances here, because that's got a little electronic kit behind me.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yes. Wow. Yeah.
I'm a failed drummer. Well, I'm actually also technically a failed guitar player. You've made a profession out of it. Whereas I remember very vividly getting to the age of 24 and sending out a load of jiffy bags with our demo tapes in, and when the tree fell in the forest and nobody heard it, you know. And I just remember thinking, I'm not going to be a professional guitar player. It was a very emotional moment in my personal life. I mean, and also, but Feeder as a band, I mean, you're known for your dynamics. You know, there's a lot of heaviosity there.
Yeah.
But like that, but obviously there's a lot of light and shade, and I suppose that's what we'd expect from a band that came up in that grunge into Britpop era, which is what you did. But is it true that all of your songs tend to start on acoustic guitar?
Sorry, Sean, you just cut out there. I hear the J for grunge. I guess you might say grunge, but yeah. I mean, I think you're asking me. I mean, basically, I listened to lots of different types of music. You said when I was growing up, anything from bands like Fleetwood Mac, Simon and Garfunkel. But at the same time, I was listening to bands like Black Sabbath. So I was really into that kind of acoustic side, but also that heavy side. And I think that kind of rubbed off into Feeder really, and rubbed off into my songwriting. I've always loved bands. I mean, Led Zeppelin always used to have kind of acoustic folk songs. They used to have heavy tracks like Kashmir and like rock and roll. And I used to love bands that had those different like dynamics and sort of freedom. And we've always sort of, we've always tried to do that. And I've always enjoyed that because it's given me a lot more, just given me a much bigger canvas, a musical canvas in which to write.
A lot more guitars to buy as well, Grant.
A lot, yeah, I do have quite a few now, and I've got another one. Look at this new one; it's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I mean, I'm sort of known for Jazzmasters, so this is the perfect shaped guitar for me.
Well, this is it. I mean, is it true that you start nearly all songs on the acoustic? That's how you work them up.
I write probably 95, if not more, percent of the Feeder stuff on acoustic guitar. Yeah. I mean, obviously, some songs are a bit more riff-led, so I jump onto my electric, which is normally another Jazzmaster like this one here. This is the one I do virtually all my recording with. But yeah, I just think that's the secret of a good song, and it just makes it very portable. I think if you've got a song that can work in a very simplistic way, and it's written that way, I just think it's always a good sign.
Well, what do you think about? So let's get on to the Jazzmaster, because the Acoustasonic. That's why we're here, and it's a big. And first it was the Telly, then it was the Strat. But what is it? What does it bring to the party for you? Because as you've already said, you do play some acoustic live. But how's this going to open things up for you? Do you think when you do start to play live again?
Well, I'm still kind of learning what it does, but it's so versatile, this guitar. I mean, honestly, it's an absolute beast. I mean, I've just sort of figured out after about 2 days of having it, this is not a tone button. It's basically an A and B, and you can blend between different voices. It's basically got like 5 different voices here, just on the switch, and you can blend between going either anti-clockwise or clockwise, and it completely changes, the whole sound. So you've got maybe, on one side, you might have like a jumbo acoustic sound. On the other side, you might have like an M20, like a small body, like kind of acoustic, which is really good for like finger picking. I mean, I'm really into that kind of Nick Drake, that sort of stuff. I do a lot of that on my solo stuff as well. So this would be absolutely so useful for me live, because I'm always in between. I always kind of think, well, I kind of want to play acoustic on the first bit of the song and then go heavy, and it's always difficult to do that. Whereas this guitar is so versatile. You can go from a really lovely clean like finger pick sound, and then suddenly sort of crank it up. I mean, that is absolute gold.
It really is quite surreal, actually, isn't it, to have an instrument where, like you say, you can literally be sounding like Nick Drake, or you can sound like Johnny Cash on the front one, and then all of a sudden you just flick and you're Pete Townsend. It's a bit ridiculous, a bit magical, isn't it?
Totally, because otherwise, you've got your acoustic and you've got all these pedals going on. I mean, normally I'll have like my acoustic going through an amp and 2 fuzz boxes, and then it's feeding back and stuff like that, and I can never really, get it quite right. But this is going to be really useful for me. I'm actually quite looking forward to getting on the road with it and seeing how it kind of, performs in a big arena.
What was it about the Jazzmaster in the first place? And tell us a little bit about the one that you've got there, actually.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that last one. You cut out.
You know what? If anybody's on computer games downstairs, they're going to get murdered. I would just say, what originally attracted you to the Jazzmaster itself?
Do you know, when I started playing a Jazzmaster, which was probably in the early 90s, they weren't that popular. I always liked the look of them. I loved just like the shape. I don't know. There was just something about the shape and the sound of them that was just a bit different. They weren't like a Strat. They weren't a Telecaster. They were somewhere in between, and I just felt really instantly comfortable with one. I got my first Jazzmaster, which is probably one of my live favorites. It's called Jesus, and it's all beaten up. And that was my first ever Jazzmaster, and that's what, when I really sort of fell in love with them. That was probably in maybe around 92. But honestly, you could pick them up in those days for about sort of 400 quid, even less sometimes. Whereas now, I mean, they're going for silly money.
Yeah, it's probably 10 times that for the one you got.
Yeah. Well, this is a 59. This is like an original 59 Jazzmaster, which is one I use say for most of the recording. I mean, I've got a lot of guitars, but I only use maybe 3 or 4 when I'm in the studio. Otherwise, you just spend your whole time tuning them up and saying, oh, maybe that one, maybe this one. So I kind of know what works. And this is always like, that's always in my first, when I start doing anything, this is the one I go to, always. It's just a great, it's just got that lovely bit of age to it. It just sounds great. I mean, I haven't even changed the strings on this for about 5 years because I like the sound of the dead strings. It's just got a real character to it,
You're like the James Jameson of the guitar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no rules with guitar. Some people are really purists. Oh, you've got to have new strings and this and that. You know what? There's absolutely no rules, especially when you're recording in the studio. I just get a load of pedals, just like plug them in and see what happens sometimes.
Well, do you think that, I don't know if you've tried this yet, but
it's fine. But in the studio, just have fun and just experiment, and try different guitars and different pedals or whatever it is,
The exciting thing about the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster as well, of course, is that you can do that. You can really, especially in that, I think in the 4th and the 5th settings, you can really effects down, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, now I've worked it out. It's actually quite simple. You basically just got your 5 different voices here, and then you just got, and it's actually quite nice to even blend. So you've got like, say for example, you've got like 5A, so you can have A if you go in the anti-clockwise, and then you've got clockwise. But if you blend the two, you get a slightly richer sound, and it's really, really nice for sort of chordy stuff. And then you can sort of just go to the J45 and do a bit more gentle. That kind of mahogany sound, which I use a lot for all the. I mean, honestly, it sounds actually really, really good. I mean, not many acoustics, when you plug them into an amp, they always sound a little bit, I don't know, fake. But this, honestly, I'm really impressed with this. I'm not just saying it. It really does sound good.
As you've just mentioned, it amuses me to hear the phrase mod knob, because it always makes me think of certain musicians. But it is quite an incredible piece of work, isn't it? Because you can just basically scroll through. You're basically a dreadnought to this tiny, slim-shouldered sort of concert guitar. Yeah,
I mean, there's lots of really cool settings. I mean, I think it's. So I've actually marked these down because I'm just sort of still learning the guitar. But I think a setting like 2B, which is down here, it's like a lo-fi, so almost like a piezo, like crunch, which is.
It's incredible. Oh, hang on.
Sort of Gary's guitar stuff for that, it's great for that kind of stuff. It can go all like Graham Coxon or whatever. I mean, it's great to have that. You just wouldn't have that versatility, if you were playing like a big body like Gibson or something. I mean, I love old guitars. I've got some really nice old acoustics. I'm known for playing Gibson like J45s and Guild M20s, but honestly, you can get some really good sounds from it, and it's actually really close.
I mean, this is the thing. You've got some. I've been doing a bit of guitar research on you, of course, and you talk about Gibson J45s and J200s and Guild M20s. But when you do that on a live stage, say you're at the Brixton Academy, do you tend to find that you have to compromise on the kind of frequencies you got to drop out so that it doesn't howl back? Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, there's always a little bit of compromise. I mean, my J45 does sound pretty good. It's just got a sort of stand like Fishman pickup on it, and it sounds fine. It's not the same as having like a mic on it. This to me sounds much closer to to a mic'd up acoustic, which is really hard to get at from any pickup. I mean, how they figured this out, I really don't know. I mean, there must be so much sort of thought that's gone into this. And the great thing about this for me as well, apart from the fact that it's like a really nice shape, it's got that Jazzmaster vibe to it. It's got some of my favorite guitars in there. And it's, you know, I was a little bit skeptical, thinking, God, you know, how's this going to work? But now I've had a few weeks with it. It's honestly, I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I can't wait to actually take it out on the road and see how it is. You know, so obviously I've only been playing at home in my studio, but it sounds great. And I've already used it on a new feeder track as well. So it's getting some usage already.
Oh, that's good to know, because you obviously, to go back to the band for a little while, you had Tallulah out a couple of years ago now. And then there was this thing that happened. I don't know if you got it where you were, the pandemic.
Oh, you're back. Oh, you went off just for a few seconds there.
Oh no,
That's all right. I can hear you now.
But because you had Tallulah out a couple of years ago, you just mentioned a new feeder track. So what's the next? Are you recording an album at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, I've written loads of stuff. I mean, it's been a really tough time, isn't it, for everyone? But I first few months I didn't feel inspired at all. It was just a really weird headspace and just felt a little bit down. But I suddenly found some inspiration, and I've written about 25 new tracks. I know, and then I finished most of them. So there's definitely some plans for some feeder stuff. Hopefully we're going to put something out this year as well. Not sure exactly when. So we're just in the process of starting some mixing, hopefully next week. And I'm finishing off a few tracks. Taka's got some bass to do on a few. And yeah, it's all going well. It's all going good. I mean, there's definitely some rock moments on there. And there's also a few acoustic tracks. So yeah, so this could be.
It could be. It's just the way you're feeling, I imagine, at the time, isn't it? You just that up. I mean, but this is it. I mean, what about live work? I mean, people are talking about it constantly because we're so obsessed with the idea of being in a room with people again. But from the inside, are you any closer to knowing when you might be able to do that?
Well, it's looking quite positive. I mean, it's looking like we might be able to do some of our festivals that would have been moved like twice. There's a few that look like they're going to be going ahead in July. And then we've got a few possible ones in August, but I'm just not sure. I mean, hopefully it's looking quite positive, obviously with the vaccine, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, it could all change. I think if everybody behaves and acts sensibly and doesn't go crazy, then hopefully we can get back to some sort of.
Absolutely. I'm gone. Wait.
Sorry. Oh, you're back.
Well, it's something to do with the satellites at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
There's been a sunspot explosion.
Yeah, it's looking quite positive, Sean. I mean, much better than it was a few weeks back. And I think, the vaccine hopefully is going to be a bit of a game changer. As I was saying, it's just really down to all of us now to be sensible and to just, that's the key, really, isn't it?
It really is. It is. I mean, can you imagine that being at a festival, being in a concert hall, listening to music? It's all anybody thinks about at the moment, isn't it?
I know. Do you know what? I think it's really going to kick off in a good way. I think it's going to be a really good vibe. I mean, especially for live music. I mean, everyone's going to just be, come on, let's just go out and kind of watch bands and go and party and just kind of enjoy themselves. And I think it's going to be a really, really fun time. I just sort of, I mean, obviously I can't wait to play again. I mean, I haven't been on the stage, for over a year, which is, I think, that, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous about playing again.
Well, that's it. It's been, it's such a game changer. It's such a bizarre thing for us all to have gone through, Here's a question for you before I lose you. Is it true that you wrote Buck Rogers, which is a super hit, let's be honest, for a different band?
Yeah, I did. I mean, basically, I wanted to work with Gil Norton. I don't know if you know Gil Norton. He's a producer. He's done some amazing stuff. He did all the Pixies, 3 Pixies albums, or maybe 4 of their albums. He's done a couple of Foo Fighters albums. He's done 3 Feeder albums. He's done Echo and the Bunny. I mean, he's a total legend in the kind of indie rock world. But he was a really sort of big guy, and he was it was hard to actually get to meet the guy and to see if he wanted to work with Feeder. Somehow, I think it was Gil's wife said that.
Cliffhanger. Hang on. It's coming back. any moment now. No.
No. Sorry, Sean. Did you get any of that at all?
I got that. I got towards the middle of it, and Gilmore.
Yeah, okay. And basically, Gil was working with this US band. I think they were called SR71 or something, and they were short of a single. And Gil's manager, I think, called my manager saying, would I be interested in maybe doing like a co-write, or did I have any songs that might be suitable? It was my way in to get to meet Gil. Anyway, I wrote this song, Buck Rogers. It was just guide lyrics. I was very drunk one night, just came up with those chords, very simple. You know, and anyway, I played it to our record company saying, this is a song that I'm going to put forward here for Gil's band. And they were a bit like, you can't give this song away. And I had it anyway. Honestly, it's a true story. And even the lyrics were just me, just one night, just throwing down some goofy stuff, because the singer in the band was actually going to rewrite the lyrics. But I don't think he ever got to hear it.
They are amongst the most discussed lyrics in the sort of indie pop canon, really, aren't they? You know, drink cider from lemon, cider from 11. You know, there's so much conjecture on.
You know what? I remember actually recording that song with Gil. You know, when we eventually got to work with him, and we had a bit of a serious bust up, almost a punch up actually. And I wouldn't, want to get on the wrong side of Gil. And I'd rewritten the lyrics, and he goes, "Oh my God, he ruined the song." And I was like, "Gil, I can't keep those. That was just me goofing around, having a bit of fun with it one night after too much."
No.
He convinced me to keep it as it was, and it went on to be a big hit for us. You know, it's not my proudest moment as a songwriter, but there's something in that song that connected with people.
Yeah,
it's every band has a song that it probably, as a writer, isn't their proudest moment, but it's often their biggest hit. I'm sure if you ask other bands, I'm sure they've got one. Whether it's "Shiny Happy People" for REM, or maybe "Song 2" for Blur. It's a great track, but it's I'm sure they were just goofing around when they wrote that song, and it sounds great, but it was that kind of track really. But it just makes me wonder though sometimes, if I had given it to that band, would it have been a hit?
Yeah. Yes.
That's something which always plays in my mind.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, and I really don't think there's some special magic about the writing of a song, isn't there? And exactly who performs it and in what way. And there we go.
Like that stuff, that many poppy things like that. I know we're well known for that in Just a Day, but a lot of stuff I write is a bit more, is a bit darker, and it was just kind of. I've always been a pop kind of, kind of as far as the actual song melodies go, but the lyrics have often been a little bit darker in places. So that song was just a really different thing for me. So I kind of love and hate it, but when I play that song, when we go out, we do a big festival, people just go off to it, and I really can't complain about that.
And most people never get one of those, do they? You've got a number.
Yeah, we got a couple, but that's definitely one that people still. I think even people that didn't like it when it came out kind of like it now, because it's almost like it's sort of stood the test of time, and everyone knows that song. If I sort of meet people and they don't really know much about music, and they go, "Oh, you're in a band?" I say, "Yeah, the song, Buck Rogers, the player." "Oh, even the player. Oh, yeah, that's the one." It does annoy me at times, but that's life.
That's it. It's a wonderful thing. I just finally on the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster. What you've been saying you've had it for a little while. You've lived with it. Just to sort of finish off, could you give us a little strum of like what your current favorite setting is?
Do you know what? It's really hard to. I mean, obviously, we talked about the overdrive setting, which is I think one. It's called 1B if you get the actual the actual manual out, which I've got here, by the way, just in case. But that's like a nice. That's going to be really useful for me to be able to do that on like an acoustic. I can go to, but I think on a personal level, just from my experience of I only had this here for a few weeks, so I really like if you go to the top setting, which is 5. Now 5A is really nice. It's a classic kind of Martin sort of rosewood sound, and then 5B is a J45, which is one of my favourite sort of acoustics. So if you go somewhere like in the middle, you get this really nice tone. It's almost like the best of both. So you get that nice sort of warmth of the mahogany J45, but actually blended with that sort of dreadnought kind of Martin sound. So really nice for chord stuff, like really open. Yeah, for that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? But also, sorry, but also I really like 4B, which is the small-bodied M20 kind of based on a Guild M20, which is setting 4B. So you go to the number 4, go to B, anti-clockwise, and then you've got that lovely Nick Drakey kind of picky thing. It sounds great. It's really authentic.
Kind of magical to see that on one box.
I know.
But it's you're demoing it so beautifully for us there, Grant. It's gorgeous to hear it.
Yeah, it's really it's so versatile. I mean, honestly, I'm not just saying it. I've actually kind of written a few things on it because it actually inspired me to write a song. And it's just sometimes when you get a new guitar or something different, it does inspire you. You know, just it's great, and it's just a really nice guitar just to pick up at any time. You know, whether it's plugged in or not, because it's not too loud, so you can sort of be sat in the kitchen like writing stuff and not annoying the kids. You know what I mean? I'm always guitar at home, and I'm sure I drive them mad at times, but it's a bit more discreet.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's just a little bit more. You know, you can be as rude as you like with it on the back pickup, or you can be all of these different.
Totally.
I love that, you know, the dreadnought rosewood, you know, the jumbo mahogany, the deep mids, the rosewood audition.
There's so many. Yeah, I mean, there's really cool sounds on this, and I'm still. I mean, you know, if you ask me in like 6 months' time, whatever, I'm sure I'll be using different settings. But those are just ones that I instantly, you know, felt like a connection with, and they're kind of sounds that I'm quite used to. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's so good, and it's actually really nice to play as well. So you've got like a really nice neck. You know, it's easy to play. Yeah. So you know, when you're going up here, because often, you know, when I do stuff, sometimes in stores, or I'm doing like a radio session. You know, I'm playing a song which I've done, you know, which is more of an electric track sometimes, and it's quite hard, you know, to get up the neck, you know. Yeah. Where on this, it's just perfect. You know, I can, you know, really. Otherwise, you're kind of like, oh, I can't quite reach that chord. You know? So that's a real plus point.
It really is. Well, Grant, it's been a real pleasure. It's been lovely to chat to you. I can't believe I've not done this before. I can't believe I've not chatted to you.
Yeah, so I'll come and do some stuff anytime.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, it's been great to hear a proper guitar player play it and make it sound beautiful. And we very much look forward to seeing you in a sweaty venue as soon as it's allowable and safe. But Grant Nicholas from Fender, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sean. Take care, mate. Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
So there you go, Grant Nicholas of Fender. That was sensational. A few little connection issues there, but he manfully dealt with them. Just from that, you can already hear some of those beautiful tones. We're going to be talking next, very, very shortly, to another immense musician, Declan McKenna. So he's next. Sorry. Distracting having this Acoustasonic Jazzmaster right next to me. Please forgive me. It's not about me tonight. It's about this incredible guitar and some of the artists who are already using it and enjoying it. We've just chatted to Grant Nicholas. Next up is a man who seems like a veteran, even though he's still in his early 20s, even younger than me, possibly because he had a load of record company execs interrupting his GCSE revision to try and sign him. He makes beautiful, eclectic, original music, and he's here to talk guitars. It's Declan McKenna. Hi,
hey.
Declan.
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm excited to be part of this Fender launch, Declan.
Yeah, me too. It's a very exciting time.
It's great, isn't it? And thanks. It's good to chat to. I would like to describe you as a true original, really, because your music is so sort of indefinable and uncategorizable. Is that one of the things that has always been a priority for you to keep things moving in that way? Was it just come out like that?
Yeah, in ways, a bit of both. I think. I guess I've just always approached music as like exploration and as trying to sort of carve my own path with my resources around me, with what I have, and like that's kind of been what I've done. Yeah, ever since I kind of knew how or found ways to, the whole way through my life. So I guess, yeah, it's trying to, do something that's not exactly rocket science, but like just carve your own path into it and carve your own way. And, once upon a time, it was sort of just like stealing my brother's 8-track and kind of figuring things out and playing drums by like literally used to like hit a microphone to get a kick drum sound. Just were absolutely no at all. And that's kind of remained the theme, I think, for me creatively, is to like do those things and yeah, take your own route, whatever that is. Like even if it sounds completely crazy. So yeah, I appreciate that. Anyway, it's very nice of you to say.
Well, I'm getting pretty old myself these days, and but I do love to hear. I wonder if it is something to do with newer artists, the access to music, the access to streaming things. And like back when I were a lad, Declan, if you couldn't find it at the local boots, you couldn't hear it. But the fact that you've got the world on your laptop, for instance, do you think that feeds into the eclectic nature of the music?
Yeah, I mean, it's just gradually become more and more accessible throughout my whole life. Like even a few years ago when I was a bit younger, like it just didn't feel quite the same. Like there was quite the same, you need one tool to make a hit record. Now it is like you can get your hands on a MacBook or whatever, something to that effect. That's what everyone's working on. Like that's like the industry standard almost now, is like a very compared at least to like what it used to be. Yeah. Is so unbelievably contained in and I think that's the change. And people my generation have kind of grown into that change in the world, but there's artists coming through now that been around the last few years, and that's just been the norm. And I think it's really interesting and it's definitely different from what it used to be, the music world now, because there's so many new ways to make music or new ways people want to release music. So yeah, it's definitely so cool to watch anyway. So a massive shift like seems to be happening.
Well, I mean, I should ask about when you play live in particular. You spar with Isabel Torres, don't you?
Yeah.
She's your sort of foil, your other guitar player. You describe your playing as a bit more random, violent, a bit more perhaps percussive, a bit more of what's going on with the right hand. Is that a fair description of what you do on the guitar?
Yeah, I mean, not entirely. No, a lot of people would tell me I'm being stupid saying stuff like that, but I think there's some truth to it. I think, you know, that's my focus is generally about, you know, serving a song and how the best way that I can do that. And for me, is a lot of the time through how I feel what I'm playing, and not necessarily worrying quite so much about the left hand playing. You know, not saying that I'm not a capable guitarist in all ways, but you know, I've been doing it a while. But my focus a lot of the time is on the feel and on the, you know, the energy, I guess, that you're putting into the guitar. And that, I guess, it's been my focus the last couple of years as I've realized how important it is, and spent time in studios and worked on music and gone like, why did this sound like this when I was writing it? But then when I played it in a studio, I kind of did it wrong, or like I didn't, you know, it didn't feel the same. And it's like, you know, getting out of little patterns. I'm always doing that, you know, getting out of little patterns where you're like, oh, actually, I've learned to do it this way. I've, you know, taught myself to kind of get things right in the studio, but you're not actually getting it right. You're taking it away from what you originally felt when you played it by, you know, getting things too right. So like, that's why, yeah, my focus has maybe shifted in the last few years in how I play guitar and how I approach feel. Isabel, on the other hand, is very good at that, but just an all-round, just like powerhouse with guitar, and can basically learn anything I needed to in about 2 minutes. So it's yeah, it definitely feels not intimidating because we're obviously just close mates in a band together. But she's a bloody incredible guitarist.
A great secret weapon to have in the band, I imagine. With that, you bring up an interesting point there, because it's like I'm always fascinated, like reading about and hearing about musicians in the studio and about, you know, the dozens of takes it can take sometimes to just get a particular performance right, and you do not understand what's missing. You're playing it in the same way that, like you just said, you might be playing it the same way you did when you wrote it, but there's a special source that's missing sometimes. And is that sometimes as simple as getting the emotional connection and the energy right in the room? And could it just be that sometimes?
Yeah, it absolutely is that. And that's everything a song is the emotional connection and the feel of it. And that's kind of what I've been learning, obviously, like, you know, because you normally go into the studio with the melodies, with all of that other stuff. It's how it feels when you lay it down. And more recently, like, you know, since the release of my last album, I've kind of been thinking of ways I can approach the new album differently, and you know, being a lot more confident these days with my own production has kind of led me more to really wanting to actually use those first takes a lot more, you know, working on a song like on my own in like here in upstairs in my flat, and just kind of trying to make those takes, even if they're not recorded perfectly, work within the song, because they are the song, like they are the emotional connection that kind of first got you into it. And like, if you can, there's something about those first takes that's actually been like really, really drawing me in and make it sort of carving the direction, I suppose, for the stuff that I'm working on at the minute. But yeah, it's a constant, you know, it's a constant change. It's a constant struggle with all of these things. But I think the important thing for me has always been to go with what I'm feeling and what is maybe new to me, and what is, you know, the things that I'm discovering and the things that I'm learning will always kind of lead me to be more creative, I suppose, you know, leaning into the that is a new idea or is something that I haven't quite explored completely yet.
I think that this brings us on nicely to the instrument in question, the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, because apart from the fact that when I started to play it, and the guys were telling me about the pickup, the sort of piezo pickup, the pickup that picks up the percussion and the feel of the top of the microphone. I've sort of enjoyed playing with that element of it. Have you? What's been your experience so far of playing with it? What have you thought? Your initial thoughts?
I've literally got it right here. It's beautiful for a start. I've kind of been, I just love the versatility of it. Like I think the ability to shift between like an acoustic and electric in the way that this does, like, you know, sonically. It creates kind of familiar sounds. It also creates something quite new. Like, I'm getting, like, I've been playing around with it for the past sort of week or two, and getting some like Conor Moccasin type, like really intimate sounding guitar sounds, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is like wound up sounding like that, but it does. And like, it's such an interesting guitar for that. Like, yeah, the different blends that you find, like, you know, it's a new beast. And like, I quite like the fact that I haven't really had a sort of, you know, I don't really feel like there's a way I could fully understand this guitar just yet. And, you know, I had one of the other ones, the Telly, which we've been using a while, but yeah, this one is awesome too. And I still feel like I'm getting to know it. But I really love that, you know, it has a really intimate sound for a lot of the stuff I've been using it for. You know, it works really well, delicately, and, you know, played very softly. And like, I've been kind of doing a lot of that, and just playing around with the sounds as I go. And the versatility of just being able to pick it up and kind of jump between sounds, and that is just, it's just insane. Like, it's so efficient being in the studio, and that's kind of the whole thing. That kind of led into this conversation here, like, that was just talking about, is being able to work quickly and just like go with your ideas. And like, this thing really helps.
I know
I've been exploring.
I absolutely agree. I just love that movement from, you know, you can be Thurston Moore in one moment, and then I keep going on about it, but it is like magic. It's just, and then all of a sudden you're, you know, the Joni Mitchell. It's kind of mad. I've got a question from the audience here. Kerry says, Declan, what guitar did you write "You Better Believe" on? Important question.
Ooh, that is an important question. I should know the answer. Well, first of all, I wrote "You Better Believe" with my friend Jake Passmore's, who we were at my house. You see, and some synths. I think actually Jake first played the guitar on, it would have been this, I have two of these, so it would have been one of them. I think it would have been this one. I think Jake played the first chords, those on one of these, PM2. So that's the closest to what song it was written on, but I actually think it was Jake who played those chords in, not me. And then some of the other guitar parts would have been, it could have been anything. It could have been my Duosonic, my red Duosonic, which is over there, which I do a lot of writing on, because again, it's another just really handy little, a versatile, lightweight guitar that I love to use writing.
Well, Grant just mentioned actually that how nice it is with the Acoustasonic to just have it. You don't even necessarily have to be near amplification. You know, the fact that you can just play it as is. And is that a helpful tool for the songwriter when inspiration strikes? Off you go.
Yeah, it's great as well, because I get sort of like Catholic guilt playing my guitar too loud at night, and like just having this little sort of not audaciously loud instrument, but like one that plays out perfectly and you can sing to it and still hear it, and like, you know, and the sounds are really good. I actually had a tune like recently I was working on just miking up the Acoustasonic and not actually using the DI input, just because I had that handy, and it was like, you know, it obviously has obviously it's a different sound. You're not going to get the same thing. You're not going to get an electric guitar sound out of that quite, but like, just having, you know, when you're working in the studio, it doesn't necessarily always matter. It's just like you're just getting a part and you're like, oh, that sounds good through a microphone. Got the microphone set up, I'm just going to use it. And like, but see, mate, yeah, the fantastic thing about it is the versatility kind of knows no bounds. And like, I haven't got bored of writing with it yet. I keep kind of picking it up and throwing on sort of different things just to get an idea out there, and then like just seems to stick because it's versatile and it sounds really good. And as you say, like the, you know, Thurston Moore feeling sort of thing, like you get a lot of dirt out of it for a guitar that maybe doesn't look like it's going to be sort of violent. You get a hell of a lot of grit out of it, just straight into the DI, which is just wicked. Like, yeah, it's really, really cool.
It's filthy, that Tim Shaw humbucker. It really is.
Yeah,
I mean, what? Here's a question. What was the first song that you learned on the guitar, Declan? Do you remember? Mine was House of the Rising Sun, obviously.
Right. Yeah, that is obvious. I don't know what mine would have been. Probably was like Deep Purple, probably the most obvious one. I think the first one I can remember were like I learned a few White Stripes songs when I was first playing guitar, and like Hotel Yorba. I think it's just like 3 chords. I think that would have been one of them when I'd sort of probably only knew that about 4 or 5 chords existed, and just kind of learning the couple of songs that I could. We had a little songbook when I was younger of like, it was like G, C, and D or something, and it was all the songs you could play with just 3 chords. And so
right, cool.
I used that, and it was like Obla Dee, Obla Da, in it, a couple of Beatles tunes, like just a load of old tunes really that my dad would have played. And yeah.
I love it. I love it. I tell you what else, I'm going to expose myself as being somebody who's not completely across everything to do with the guitar, because I'd not heard much about the Fender Meteora.
Right. Yeah.
You play those as well, don't you? What kind of a sound does that make? I'm going off piste a little bit here, but I've got to ask you.
I tell you the truth, I don't know all that much about guitars. I just kind of like playing them. But I found the Meteora really, really cool. I first just saw it and was like, I kind of just need to get one of those a few years ago or 2 years ago. It's such a new guitar. Just has that sort of retro future feel about it, which is just exactly like in my lane. And it kind of doesn't know whether it's in the past or the future. I mean, I've used the Meteora a whole lot on a lot of songs. I think British Bombs and probably a couple of the tunes on the newer album as well. I must have used it on. I used it a lot when we were demoing the new album for sure. It just shreds so unbelievably well and feels so good to shred on. And like I got that at a similar time that I got the MWFX Judder pedal, which has since become like really important on my pedal board, which is just like a staggering sound, like it's like a instantaneous delay, or like I don't even know what to call it, but it's a Judder. That's what the sound is to me anyway. And using that in the Meteora and just some gnarly distortions has kind of shaped a lot of the sort of like solo sounds and more like intense guitar sounds that I've been using more recently. And that's what I've kind of done with the Meteora, is kind of used it it's been a sort of shredding guitar a lot of the time. But yeah, I've been using it live a lot as well, because it's versatile enough and like it just is so meaty and yeah, just it feels like nothing else. So I'm really into that guitar. I don't actually have it with me. I think it's at my lockup at the minute, but I need to go and retrieve it. But yeah, I love that one. It's really, really cool guitar.
What settings have you found that you're most attracted to with the Acoustasonic, with the Jazzmaster? What's your sort of current go-to, would you say?
I mean, I kind of like have been up this end. You can kind of get a really nice blend of like acoustic and electric, which I've been really liking. Just kind of going between. Getting these really delicate like and just like I think that's such a nice balance and such a nice, just sounds familiar but also like quite alien. And yeah, it just, it's so seamless. Like I can't quite get my head around it even still, but yeah, just like generally I've been kind of having mostly acoustic, and then kind of just blending in the sort of the humbucker basically in places or
It's beautiful. I love what you're doing with that. I mean, I must quickly ask Amanda's question, because she just wanted to know if would you consider yourself more an electric or an acoustic player on balance?
Electric, definitely. I mostly because of the scarring that years of busking gave me, playing acoustic guitars in the cold and just absolutely hating it. Yeah, I definitely always, you know, wanted to be an electric guitar player, and that's kind of, yeah, I'm definitely much better at it, I think. I love the acoustic for a lot of reasons, but I just don't get as inspired as often off of the acoustic guitar. Electric just knows no bounds for me, and I'm always finding a new way to do it. The acoustic, I'll probably change my mind in about 3 months' time, but you know, I see myself as more of an electric player because you can maybe get away with a bit more on the electric. You can get away with being a little bit more creative because you won't notice the sort of flaws quite so much. And you know, there's just many different ways to do that, but I love them both. You know, I'm always switching between. But yeah, electric.
Right, yeah. Okay, electric then acoustic. I mean that's the great thing about this Acoustasonic, though, isn't it? Is that it's got basically an electric neck, and also you can string it so that you don't have the wound G, so you can string it like an electric as well, which is kind of mind popping to me.
Yeah, just I can't get my head around it. But I'm genuinely so impressed with how just like how well it plays, how good it feels, how good it sounds, like how much you can get out of it, and it's obviously just like got such a great efficiency to it in the writing process as well. Like that's been really the important thing about it for me the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, no need to choose anymore.
I know you can have both.
Yeah, both in one.
I guess I'll ask all of you this, you performers. You know, when do you see yourself, like for instance, plugging in an Acoustasonic Jazzmaster in a venue in the near future? Are there plans for you guys to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to be playing shows fairly soon. You know, in the summer, things look, you know, are looking much better than they have been. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think we've been using the other Acoustasonic, the slightly older one. We used that for our live stream gig in September. So it was part of that live set. So I'm gonna have to try this out, but now we have two, so I can have one, Isabel can have one, and we're flying really. So yeah, I'm hoping to. I'm definitely going to do a bit of experiment over the next few months. Want to get some DIs and things, boring stuff really. But yeah, to kind of get the acoustic tone exactly how I want it, and kind of figure out, as I say, what the hell I'm supposed to do with this thing.
what it's capable of, because that's the thing. I can't, because of that mod knob. As I keep going on about it myself, but it's like almost like an infinite amount of different guitars in there, isn't it? You know, it's not just like 10 settings, it's like all the possible permutations in between. So you need the rest of your life to find all these little secret sauces.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's not enough YouTube tutorials yet, but that's kind of the exciting thing for me. I can't cheat. Not as much as I normally would.
Well, I'm going to get myself one of these Judder pedals that you're talking about as well. Judder.
The MWFX Judder is James Ford, in fact, introduced me to the Judder pedal, and it's wicked. It's very very, and it's all over everything I've released in the last 2 years. So,
if you want to know what it sounds like, guys, McKenna's your man.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, honestly, it's a real pleasure and a privilege to chat to you. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for chatting to me. It's been lovely. And
we cannot wait to see you on a stage and hear. When do you think the next Declan record might be coming out? Is that too much to ask at the moment?
I mean, I'm quite productive at the minute, so hopefully quite soon. I'm working on a lot of things. I'm working on a lot of different stuff. You know, I'll definitely have something out this year. Probably not an album, but yeah, I'm working on a lot of different bits, so it's exciting. Yeah, and hopefully next year will be slightly easier time to release an album. You know, I'm just looking forward to getting out and playing shows. I think that's just going to be such a treat, really, after all of this.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, I'll let you get on now. Get your tea. But thank you so much for chatting to us, Declan McKenna.
Yeah, cheers, Sean. I'll see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah, you too. See you soon.
Right, nice one, man.
Thank you. There you go, gentlemen. Declan McKenna there, talking about our our star of the evening, the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster. I'm going to need an osteopath, me, after 2.5 hours in this chair. It's awful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a tiny little break, and then I would say at what time are we on here? At about 7:30, we are going to be speaking to VP Guitar and Research and Development at Fender, the wizard himself, Brian Swervevager.
You caught me then. I was having a biscuit and I was having a play. So apologies for that. It's deeply unprofessional. I'll put the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster to one side because it's time to speak to the Godfather. Our next guest, he is the godfather of the Acoustasonic technology and range, sonic sorcerer. He's woven his evil magic alongside some other masters of the dark arts of the guitar sound to bring us what we are discussing today, the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, VP of Guitar R&D. It is Brian Swervegger. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Yay!
Welcome to the Design Lounge here at Fender.
Is this where the magic happens, Brian?
Well, it starts here and then it continues throughout the rest of the amazing team.
Oh, it's so odd to see it, actually. I mean, I'm going to declare this right at the beginning. I don't know if you've heard of this book, The Birth of Loud.
I have, yeah.
Basically talking about the beginnings of the electric guitar and about Leo's journey, essentially, from a shed in California to where we are now. Did it feel a bit like you're kind of stepping into Leo's slippers a bit here to develop this entirely new sort of instrument?
It did. I had the privilege of working with Leo in his later years. I was a kid playing guitar at Disneyland, and some of his coworkers would come through the park and say, "Boy, you should be playing Leo's new guitars." And eventually they invited me over there to Fender Avenue in Fullerton, California. And I met Leo. And then, when they talk about he would use local players to test pickups and do those kind of things. Well, I was one of those kids. And so I had got the privilege of working with him for 2 years on new ideas. And boy, what a privilege it is to continue that on now today.
I don't know. So many questions, really. I always, from what I've read about Leo, he wasn't a player himself, really, was he? He certainly wasn't for a long time.
No, I would say he's an industrialist, and that probably goes for all of the guitar makers I've had a privilege to learn from, Bob Taylor or Tom Anderson. All these guys, they figure out a way to take what a player is asking for and they turn it into art. That's like industrial art, really. And so, that's the challenge always is when you're doing something new, it's an interpretation challenge. Okay. You may say you want it a little more gray or a little more spongy or, use some sort of a different phrase. And then it's like, okay, well, what's that mean and how are we going to achieve it?
It's like George Martin in Abbey Road, isn't it? And you've got, John saying, "I want it to sound like a 1,000 Buddhist monks chanting on the top of a mountain." That's what you've got to deal with, isn't it? You've got to try and you've got to solve problems. Yeah.
And so I think the freer you are to dream and the freer when you let go of the bounds of creative captivity and say, "I'm not afraid to fail. I'm going to go do something new." And that's what I learned from Leo and from Bob Taylor and David Hostler, another mentor of mine, is you have to go, I'm free to fail. I'm going to go chase a new idea. And, it might look like a pile of things on my table over there or, a bunch of strange guitars on a wall, some new timber, but once you're not afraid to try something new, then it's all about game on. Let's go.
Well, this is where we come to the product, because tell us about the beginning of the Acoustasonic journey. Of course, we've, you know, first it's Telecaster and Stratocaster and Jazzmaster, but is part of the idea to create almost like a sort of a new kind of instrument, really. I mean, you're not completely rewriting the guitar, but you are rewriting what the guitar does, aren't you, to a great extent?
We are. And, you know, I had the privilege of, before I joined Fender, having a great journey in the guitar business. And this is one guitar that I always dreamed could be. And so I had a meeting with our CEO, Andy Mooney, one day we had a lunch together, and he asked me, what would Leo do? You know, what if Leo were going to make a modern acoustic, what would Leo do? And so I started thinking about that, and just had some wild ideas that didn't exist. And, you know, people have made run at this kind of a thing before, but never with this type of technology or the power that the Acoustasonic family has. And so I just then kind of felt like a merry ringmaster, and I started, you know, going and calling cohorts like Tim Shaw or Larry Fishman. And we just started putting the band together, and, you know, there were no rules, and we kind of felt a little bit like pirates and a little bit like, you know, school kids again, because, you know, when there's no rules, you go and get in a little bit of trouble, and then you go and figure out how to get out of that trouble, right? And so
Well,
as we experimented and tested ideas and found our way, we were having so much fun as a group that it was, you know, it just came together quite quickly. I mean, it still had a 3-year journey for the first one, but it's, you know, that's quite quick for something brand new like this.
Well, this is it. What are you trying to achieve with an Acoustasonic? Because like you say, you work on the brilliant, on the Taylor T5. You know, that's a sort of step towards this, and we're all aware of the idea of the electroacoustic guitar, of course, and they've been around for decades, and people have been amplifying acoustic guitars for even longer than that. What was your what Leo would do moment? What were you trying to achieve with it?
Well, I think, sorry, I'm plugging in at the same time here. But Leo made things simple, and simple, easy, and great sound. And if you think of a Fender guitar, they're always, you just plug and play, right? You don't have to fool with it. You don't have to stress. It just, you plug it in and it sounds great. So I think for me, it had to deliver great acoustic sounds and proper electric sounds without having to memorize any controls, without having to, you know, play something that was like a science project, right?
Yeah.
Guitar players, we love to play guitar. We don't play science projects.
Yeah.
And so I knew that if we could get the control simple and make it sound great and make it just, you know, play great like Fenders play, then we'd be onto something.
You remind me a little bit of when I speak to people who are primarily keyboard players, like Bernard Sumner from New Order or something, and they tend to take great delight in reading manuals from start to finish, and just spending days and days working out exactly how something's going to work and how to get that little tweak out of it. What you're saying is that you wanted to do the opposite of that. You wanted something that was completely user-friendly out of the box.
Yes, because our goal is to get you making music quickly, right? If your hands are on the guitar and they're comfortable and it's comfortable on your lap and it's inspiring you to play, then you're going to make music. And that's the goal. We firmly believe as a group that music makes the world better. So if we can remove all the barriers between you and making music, even if there's some tech involved, then we've succeeded.
Well, how he comes onto this really, Larry Fishman. You know, the Acoustasonic is powered by this, you know, this Fishman technology and the Tim Shaw humbucker in this instance. You've got the mod knob, which I've talked about a lot with Grant and Declan already. This seems to be where the magic is for me, because it's not click click click. You literally can move, say on position 5, from a Dreadnought Rosewood, you know, sort of a Johnny Cash sound, and then you can move over to something completely different, or a Jumbo Mahogany over to a tiny little guitar. But as you're moving that knob, you've got all the different tiny little permutations in between. It almost seems a bit like magic, really. I mean, how much of that is using the acoustics of the guitar, and how much of it is wizardry and modeling?
Honestly, it's all of the above. So the guitar is contributing a majority of the sound, and then we use the Fishman technology that we challenged Larry to develop, to modify it, and so the art is in the knitting of those two sounds together as you move the blend knob from you know, one side to the other. It's doing a bunch of really complex modeling, if you will, but really, to your ear, it's doing exactly what a player would want, which is, boy, I love this little guitar, but I wish it just had a little deeper low end.
Yeah.
Okay, roll it in, you know, or boy, I love this big boomy sound, but I wish it weren't so boomy. I wish it was a little more articulate. Great, roll it back. And so, again, player centric. It works like you, as a guitar player, wants it to work, and all of that technology is, you know, hiding behind a beautiful ebony knob.
It's so elegant. It's so simplistic, but it's smooth as silk. How it transforms from one thing to another.
When I was describing it, as you know, to our team, you know, none of this stuff exists, so it had to be a dream. And my thought was, you know how the first Apple iPod came out, and there had been previous MP3 players, but when the first iPod came out, they said it's your entire music library, and you had a thumb wheel and a button, right? So it was super elegant, and all you had to do was learn to spin the wheel and push the button. Didn't have to memorize anything. And that was the hope here with the blend knob, was your ear will tell you when it's the sound that you like. So I didn't want click, 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 because then you'd have to memorize, oh, I switch the switch and then I go back 7 clicks. No. Again, here, the goal is to be elegant and get you making music fast. So when you're trying to track maybe, you know, with your digital workstation, or you're playing live, and you spin the blend knob, your ear will say, yeah, there it is.
You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to write a setting down. You just, and it reminds me a little bit, actually, Brian, of all those years ago when you know, the first Strat players would jam the switch between, you know, in that setting that we now have. It's sort of that seems to be like the genesis of where we're at now.
Yep.
And
it would because they were using their ears, right? They wanted that in between setting, and you knew when you got there, you were home. And I can't emphasize that enough. You know, I think everybody that experiences the Acoustasonics, at first, you want to figure it out, right? Or at first you're like, it can't be. And then as soon as you start playing it, I hope you had the experience on your lap. It was pleasing, right? It was like, oh, I could songwrite with this, or I could do a vocal rehearsal with this, right? And it makes enough sound that you can practice or songwrite. But then as soon as you plug it in, there's a pleasant surprise when you say, wow, this thing sounds better than I thought it did. Once you get past that, it's all about making music.
Yeah. It's incredible. I'm going to ask the viewers to brace themselves now, because I'm going to ask you about the bracing. Actually, if you could talk us, because I take it that the bracing that you use on the Acoustasonic is a bit different than what we're used to. How did you come across it, come towards it?
So that was another moment with Tim Shaw. He and I were sitting on the floor in his office with a big sheet of paper, and around a little coffee table, and we were sketching and drawing, and the idea was we wanted as little bracing as possible, because we had the boundary edge of the side, the way that the top is inset into the body. So we knew that was giving us the structure that we needed, but then we just wanted, how are we going to voice it? And so we took up a little bit of the old school archtop jazz world. And so there's 2 ladder style braces in there. And the fun part of that was, once we had it drawn, we just went out to the workshop and cut some spruce and glued it to the top. And as we were tapping the top and trying to, you would think there's a science to Lutherie, but there's not. And so we were looking for a pleasant tone, and Tim walked over to the belt sander and leaned into it and put some curves onto the braces. And when we tapped it again, we're like, there it is. That's it.
So
listen,
it's literally just you're using a belt sander. I read this, that you said you used a belt sander until the top woke up. So is that what you're describing? Just to get that spot where the vibration's right.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, those kind of things are happy accidents. So many people want to overanalyze, and again, they want to have a science for why they did what they did. We had some educated guesses, and we had some experience to put into this, but ultimately since we were making an instrument that nobody had made before, there were no rules. We didn't have to put an X brace in it, or we didn't have to do something traditional. So we tried something we thought would be pleasing, and with a little extra sanding, we found it.
We must also, we can't go any further without mentioning what is affectionately described as the donut. Brian, tell us what's special about the middle of the guitar.
So, the first thing that came out of our mouths was, when we knew that we were it was providing value. I think Tim made the quote, well, we can't buff the donut. And we're like, okay, that's going in the history books. But so once you have a cavity, so say, we have a top on our body, the way you can tune that cavity there is a technical term called Helmholtz resonance, which is the resonance of that cavity is by the sound port. And so normally on a traditional acoustic guitar, it's just the opening of the hole, and the size varies to allow how much air transfer is going through it. And the reason you want that is it kind of works like a bellows and keeps the top moving. In our case, we wanted to tune the body so it sounded great on your lap. And we, if it made a great sound to begin with, then it would be easier to process in the electronics. So the sound port was developed to allow us to control the air transfer, and we needed less air than a traditional big sound hole would make. So by putting the donut in there, or the sound port as we call it, and then giving it the depth from top to bottom, we were able to tune the cavity. And that was an original enough idea for an unusual shaped body like a guitar, that we were able to get a US patent on that.
Wow. Okay. So it's a completely original thing.
Yeah, and you know, and it spurned the saying, "You can't buff the donut."
You can't buff the donut, Brian. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
But it's the thing. So I mean, stop me if this is too, you know, sort of looking too much into into it. But I am a complete layman, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm not an acoustic scientist. But sound is emanating from the beautifully made body and from the donut. It's going into Larry's electronics, and we, you know, there's the piezo pickup as well, and there's Tim's pickup as well. But that and something basically that's where some magic happens though with the Fishman technology that creates all these different sounds. The Rosewood Auditorium, the, you know, the sort of the jumbo mahogany, the dreadnought rosewood.
Are you familiar with the concept of an impulse response? You know, like in the modern electric guitar world, they use IR or impulse responses to copy like speaker cabinets and different types of speakers.
I'm modeling.
Right, modeling for microphones and cabinets and speakers, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing a similar thing, but the body is, I think my best analogy is if I were an actor like Tom Hanks, and you put me in a really tight suit, really short hair, give me a Southern accent, I become Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah.
That's Tom Hanks wrapped in a wardrobe with an accent. He becomes a character, right? So we take our guitar and we wrap it in the wardrobe and character of another guitar, and now it sounds like a Rosewood Dreadnought. Now, Tom Hanks, if you remove all of his clothes, you grow his hair out, and you give him a volleyball as his best friend, now he's Survivor, right? But really it's Tom Hanks, right? Yeah. But he has no wardrobe and, you know, long shaggy hair. So in the same way, we take our guitar, we take away some things, and it becomes that small parlor guitar, the little mahogany guitar.
Okay.
So we're taking analog and digital at the same time, and we're mixing in real time, and we're doing just that. We're giving it the resonant properties of a bigger guitar, or we're giving it the resonant property of a smaller guitar. And then in the Jazzmaster, we did something for the first time. In position 2, you're just hearing the piezo pickup. So no extra anything being added to it. That's the piezo pickup raw right off the guitar.
Right.
And we call it a lo-fi piezo sound because if you listen in comparison to the high fidelity of the other sounds in the other positions, that position 2 is more old school electroacoustic, if you will.
Yeah.
And because it's a Jazzmaster, and Jazzmasters have a little bit of a rowdy heritage, we thought, man, what if we played this piezo pickup through an AC30 and distortion box? And that's where you get the other side of the blend knob. You spin the other way. Now you have this raw piezo through an AC30 that's distorting. And we were just kind of like, yes, here we go. We're bringing rowdy. And same as you get to the Tim Shaw humbucker, you know, it's clean on one end of the blend knob, but at the other end, now you're through a 4x12 half stack and another, you know, classic British amp and the overdrive and everything. And it's just all coming out of the same guitar that did that beautiful deep dreadnought tone.
It's I don't care what anybody says. It's bloody magic as far as I'm concerned, because I don't understand the technology part that as much as you do, obviously. And it just, when it comes out, it's quite unnervingly brilliant. We've had a couple of people just quickly before you have to leave us mentioning, including Trigva, any new cool things for the bass men out there. Guitars get so many cool things. Would love to see some fresh breath to the bass line.
Yeah. So the great part about this is Larry Fishman is a bass player. So
Oh.
he grew up playing upright bass, and he has a great ear for bass, as well as our team. The challenge with bass that we've faced so far, and we're definitely looking at it, is bass notes take so long to do a full wave of the frequency that to process that and to get it to feel right
Yeah.
on your fingers, those two things aren't lining up quite yet. So our expression is it's impossible. So it's going to take us a little longer.
I love that. That's so Fender.
We're not giving up. We're
No.
going to find a way.
Oh God, I love that. And this, excuse my idiocy again, but talking about this book, The Birth of Loud, it was only reading it that it made me realise that the electric bass didn't exist before Leo Fender. But obviously it didn't, but because kind of the electric guitar didn't. But it just that, you know, he sort of the invention of the bass guitar, and before it was an upright bass, it just never really occurred to me before. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Leo, again.
Well, thank you. The biggest compliment that we've received was from a long time Fender employee. Said, you know, this is the first thing since the Fender bass that's brought something completely new to the musical, you know,
Yeah.
world. And if you think about it, the Fender bass that was its name. It wasn't the precision bass or the jazz bass.
Yeah.
You you looked on credits and it said Carol Kay on Fender bass.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they called it. The electric bass was known as the Fender bass. And so I think again, that was something that they went, we're going to try this. It might fail spectacularly, or it might actually work. And it became an indispensable tool of modern music and rock and roll and everything. And so the same hope is for the Acoustasonic, that we've developed something that really just becomes a tool of the modern music vocabulary.
Well, I think from playing it myself, I think you've achieved it, and you know, the musicians that we spoke to today are getting an awful amount of pleasure out of it, which is the whole point at the end of the day, I suppose. It's been a real pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much for giving us your time today and for giving us the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster. Happy Acoustasonic Jazzmaster.
So happy to be with you guys, and I encourage everybody, no matter what level you're at, go play music. Whether you're just entertaining the couch and the goldfish, or your family or your community, or a stadium full of people. Music makes the world a better place, and what a privilege it is to make instruments and to work on new ideas and things to help bring more music to the world. So thanks for having me, and keep playing.
Thank you very much indeed, Brian Swerdvega. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Awesome. Well, we've got one more guest left, so please stay with us, because we are going to be winding up tonight in just a minute or two with Billy Martinez, the VP Category Manager, to talk all things Acoustasonic with him. sorry, doing it again. Too good, this thing. Well, guitarophiles, thank you for being with us. We're almost at the end of our Acoustasonic Jazzmaster journey today, as it was launched officially today, as you well know. Thanks to the players, Grant Nicholas of Feeder and Declan McKenna, and also to the man, Brian Swerdfager, VP of R&D, talking us through a lot of the technical side of the instrument, and to Anderton Music Company as well for hosting this. Incidentally, please remember, what you can do is I don't know this, but you can click on the live stream descriptions to find out more and to buy the guitars if you want from Andertons. So that's pretty cool. But finally, we have a man who is a guitar nut, not a guitar nut, I mean an obsessive like us, who has presided over Fender's acoustic and Squier divisions. He knows these instruments inside out. Let's finally get a bit of an outlook on the Acoustasonic range from VP Category Manager Billy Martinez. Hi, Billy.
Hey, how you doing?
Nice. Thanks so much for joining us. Oh, and look at that room as well. Where exactly are you, Billy, at this moment?
It is downstairs in my house, just like most other folks are right now.
I'm upstairs in my house.
Okay.
So it's not as exciting as yours. Billy, I guess would it be fair to say that your job tends, is introducing new ideas to the public sometimes? And if so, are guitarists accepting of wild new ideas, or are they generally more conservative?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely my job to bring new ideas to the market. I think we as a brand try to stay, innovative and sometimes think a little bit more outside the box. And as with the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster and all of the Acoustasonic guitars, that's very apparent. Where we chose to, we have a core traditional size acoustic business that does really well, but we're constantly looking for other areas to kind of grow and to find other segments of players and bring to market things that guitar players didn't realize they may have needed. And so the Acoustasonic platform, and then specifically the Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, is yet another version that offers such things.
What does the Jazzmaster version bring to the table that's a bit different from Telly and the Strat versions, would you say?
Well, first and foremost, you can see visually the size of the body and the shape of the body is much larger than the Strat or the Telly, which warrants for a louder acoustic tone before you've even plugged it in. The other thing that we've really taken a strong stance on is being able to give each guitar its own personality. We didn't want to just put the same electronics in each of the guitars. We could have done that because the guitars react differently and the tonal characteristics would follow suit. But we really wanted each of them to embrace, what the body shape tends to be known for. And the Jazzmaster is right up there with it. I mean, we took a lot of time to really make sure that the voices and like everything that we put in from a tonal characteristic into this guitar matched what a Jazzmaster, has done in the past. We've spoke to it a little bit just, as we've launched today, but you've got everyone from Elvis Costello to Sonic Youth, right? And everything in between there. And when you think about those two definitely distinct genres, and you think of what's all in the middle there, we really wanted to embrace that with the Jazzmaster and give it its own personality.
Which it does to great effect, really. I mean, is it fair to say, because as a guitar player, and you can use any of the gear that's available, of course, that Fender as a brand hasn't always been the tip of people's tongue when it comes to acoustics. You know what I mean? It's like you might say Martin, you might say Guild. Is with the Acoustasonics, is it? And I sort of mentioned this to Brian as well. Is it sort of trying to move into a different territory altogether, really?
Yeah, I wouldn't say a different territory. I think it's broadening our scope, right? I mean, you're absolutely right. When I joined Fender a little over 5 years ago, I had a strong vision that the acoustic part of our brand had a ton of potential. Just knowing how big, how big Fender is and what they've done for the industry, I just saw a big opportunity for us to go in and really kind of capture more of that. And we started with the entry level stuff and have really worked our way up through to the culmination that led us to launching this whole Acoustasonic platform. I mean, this was Brian and I had this vision from day one when we joined the company that there was more to acoustic guitars, and then more specifically to performance acoustic guitars. And so we really want to embrace the fact that there's a traditional market and there are other players in that realm that make great instruments as well. And where we wanted to differentiate is really lean in on Fender's IP and kind of have our own identity in there. And Acoustasonic definitely achieved that. I mean, we've seen wild success with this globally, and it's exciting that in a traditional market per se, that people are really interested in kind of exploring new guitars and new tonal characteristics and new technology. I mean, if you think about it, we're talking about an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, technology, all kind of coming together in one harmoniously, and we're really excited and are really pleased with how everything's turned out.
Yeah, because we touched on it a bit with Brian as well, and the sort of course, Brian got to work with Leo a little bit, didn't he? Which is, when he said that, my jaw sort of went off screen. It's like a bit like meeting Jesus or something. But I do love what I do love about it, and what he was saying is how what you've been trying to do is marry that innovation, that Fender innovation, which Leo began, which you guys have always carried, but with that great simplicity as well. You know, the mod knob is just, obviously there's so much work has gone into that, but it's just such a beautiful thing. Do you think Brian, Larry, and Tim succeeded in getting one guitar that can go, you know, from Nick Drake to Keith in one switch, basically?
I firmly believe that, and I've been a firm believer since the first time I was went and actually tested the telly. My kind of like, I was playing for a minute, and then I switched and my ears perked up and I was like, whoa, okay, we got something here. And I knew what we were shooting for all along, right? I was trying to help give direction to the team to say, here's what I really want to take to the market. And I honestly feel like as you progress through the different positions, like everyone's reaction initially internally within our company was kind of like, they'd play it and then they'd switch and they'd kind of like sit up a little bit. And then they'd play it a little more, and then they'd sit up, and then you'd see them go to the electric tone, and they kind of had this big smile on their face, like, I don't understand how you guys are doing this. And so it was really exciting, because not only that, but people were looking at it saying, I'm seeing one thing, but I'm hearing something completely different, which was a good thing. I mean, that's something that we knew we were going to have to overcome on the consumer front. But we were ready and willing to take that challenge. And I think if you look from January of 2019 to today, and it being able to have this exciting launch of the Jazzmaster, people are definitely willing to kind of go a little bit outside the box and see what's new, what's in the future, that innovation that we speak to and that Brian mentioned. We really wanted to hang our hat on that and not just come up with another Me Too concept. Larry put it great. He said, if you're talking about going up a sonic ladder, the Acoustasonic didn't just take a step up to the next rung. It like jumped 5 or 6 rungs up that ladder. And even their team was really, really excited, and it invigorated their company along with our company to create this. So it's been great.
That's it. I think you're right. I think I recognize what you're saying about people, you know, that you first try it, and I think you're expecting one thing, aren't you? You're expecting it to be an electroacoustic guitar. You know, it's kind of like, okay, you know, they're cool. There are some quite advanced ones. You know, maybe this won't feedback so much, and I can play it quite loud. But, but as you start fiddling about with it, you realize that you've got potentially hundreds of guitar sounds here. I mean, just a couple of like more technical questions. I'm playing mine through like a little wedge, you know, like a sort of PA style thing. You can you play it through like a normal, like a valve amp as well? And what happens if you do that? You know, how do you recommend getting the best out of it?
Yeah, well, I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, right out of the gate, playing it out of more of like a wedge PA style set to flat, it allows you to kind of get to know your guitar, if you will. Like you get to have that intimate session where you're going through and you're hearing everything the guitar does before you even get to an amp, a pedal, anything that's an interface, you know, before the final sound. I think that's kind of the beauty of this is you can kind of craft your own sound, and that's what a lot of the feedback is, and what we're seeing people's use case. Like they're using it in tube amps, they're using it in modeling amps, they're splitting between acoustic and electric amps. They're kind of combining those when they're going into an electric amp. They're able to engage with their pedal board like they do with an electric guitar. So it kind of opens up the guitar in itself. You just mentioned it. It kind of like, there's so many sounds in there, and there's sounds in there of guitars that don't even exist in physical form. And then once you start to kind of understand that, then you kind of like get to go off and try some things out and test and find your sound. I mean, we all know that tone is subjective to the guitar player, right? Everybody wants their own unique version of this. And that's the exciting thing about the Acoustasonic platform, and specifically even this Jazzmaster and some of the new voices that we did, because it does give you a chance to kind of figure it out on your own and then fine tune it. But there are so many cases. I mean, for me, I have sitting over here a PA speaker, and I have an ABY switch that I go back and forth between that and an Acoustasonic amp that we've got within our amp line in our company. So I've got my Supersonic out in the garage that I play. It's a little loud for the house sometimes, but I've taken it out there with my acoustic amp and split it both ways and found some things where I'm like, holy moly, I've never heard that before. So it's exciting. That's the beauty of the instrument, is every player gets to define their unique kind of sound.
Yeah, I do love that. I begin up in the more traditional end, you know, in the first positions, but I'm very much looking forward to flicking down to, especially, you know, to the Tim Shaw, to the humbucker, and to using the piezo a lot more. I'm probably saying that wrong. I don't think I've said that word out loud before. It sounds weird to me. How do you say that word, Billy?
I say piezo.
There you go.
Again, it's like tone. It's subjective. Everybody has a different way they want to pronounce it, so it's great.
You say piezo, I say tomato. But that's it. And, you know, like we were talking about before, and Grant was talking about, the sort of rocks, the heavier sounds are really convincing. You would, again, I didn't expect it. I thought it will be a sort of an affectation of a rock guitar sound, but it's a real one. And I can't wait to try, and it would be nice to hear that through a valve amp, you know, through a Mezza or something. It would be really weird. And it's true. I mean, you can use like a traditional sort of electric guitar wound string, in the sense that you don't have to have a wound G string, do you? Is that right?
No, and that's the thing. I mean, if you really think about how people respond when they buy a new guitar, whether they're experienced or new, there's a level with which they'll play, but especially the more experienced, they kind of already have their strings that they like to use. And that's the beauty of this. I mean, you can absolutely change it to electric strings, and it just gives it a different tonal characteristic. And we found that. I mean, I actually have one of my tellies that I've got, the Acoustasonic telly, that I actually went 9s on for the electric, just to hear and to see what the difference in the tone is, so that when people ask those questions, you can, you know, actually speak to it in an educated form. But it is pretty interesting. But I mean, I've heard of people going all the way up to 12s, which is, for me, I'm like, yeah, not on an Acoustasonic, but people do it. And so that's kind of the beauty of it. You can use hybrid, right? You can use the top 3 could be electrics and the bottom 3 could be acoustic. You could go all electric. You can do a different size in the acoustic world, and it all just changes the tone, but all of them still sound great.
You touched on it earlier, but has the response from players been to the Acoustasonic range? Did it exceed expectation? What were your initial expectations?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, at the onset of this over 5 years ago, when Brian and I first started talking to this, and within a week it being at Fender pitched this to our CEO, Andy Mooney, obviously we had expectations, and even my expectations of what we thought when we broke into this world was, this is going to take some time. I mean, the acoustic market, there's a more emotional attachment a lot of times to the acoustic instrument. Electric guitar players tend to use different ones. They've got their golden guitar, but they tend to buy new ones and sell off their old ones and kind of move through it. It's not the same typically in, with acoustic owners. And so it's just interesting because you get to that point where you're embracing everything that's going on with the guitar, and then you start to see people embrace it. And it's slowly but surely it builds up kind of into, now all of a sudden it's this living, breathing platform that, 5 years ago was just up in Brian and I's heads. And we were like, what is that going to mean? And then to fast forward to now and to be able to launch the Jazzmaster and have a third body shape. And the fact that the consumer base is responding to it in a positive way where we're able to keep launching new body shapes within the platform. I think it's super exciting.
That would be my next question, I guess. What would be next? I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to say because we're launching the Jazzmaster today, Sean, crying out loud. What more? I know you guys. I know Fender. You're always thinking many steps ahead. Would there be a next one, and what might that be? Any clues? Or?
No clues yet. I mean, we're like you said. I mean, I want to make sure we're definitely always thinking ahead. We're thinking, you don't innovate and then sit on your laurels and just hope that everything kind of goes smoothly. We're constantly looking at how do we refine, how do we get better, how do we make that next big step. But for me, I just want to bask in the moment of the day we launched this guitar and all of what, our team internally, from marketing to operations to production to, product line management, everybody in the company coming together and creating this and then launching it globally is a huge feat. And my hat's off to all the team members at Fender, because it's not just one team or a couple people. It's a well-oiled machine, and we want to just embrace the day because this is exciting for us.
It's wonderful. We mentioned this with Brian as well, because we've had a few questions from bass players. Pete Honor just said as well about the bass, cracking the bass. And Brian did mention that you guys are working on that. It's something to do with the slower frequency of the bass, making it more of a tricky job. I think Brian said it's impossible, so it will take Fender a little bit of time, but we will do it. Is that what you? Well,
yeah. I mean, he's dead on. That's kind of been our mantra that he kind of mentioned one day just randomly when we were sitting there, and it kind of even caught his own by surprise. But it has been. It's like, cool. Everybody tells you it's impossible. Great. Just give us a little bit longer then, and we'll get there. But we've talked about bass. We looked at, obviously other body shapes. We've looked at and looked under every rock to say, what is the next step in this? Obviously you can see, we went Tele, then Strat, then Jazzmaster. That was all by design. Now it kind of opens up to say, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for this category that didn't really exist in its current state, 2.5 years ago? There were, I mean, we even dabbled in it. Other manufacturers dabble in a version of it. We had the Strat acoustic and the Teleacoustic that we had offshore built that just, they were novelty instruments and they served their purpose. But once we got to this point where Acoustasonic was going to take the reins, it kind of made more sense to kind of move us into this direction and step away from what we were doing previously. Because again, when you think the ladder, we jumped way up, and it's very hard to just take another step up, at products that are already there. So I'm super excited. We've been looking at a, possibility of a bass. To Brian's point, there's a lot going on in the construction of these guitars, because again, just even on the technical side, they're not even braced like a traditional acoustic. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, but we've got great R&D minds that are constantly working and throwing ideas, and that's how you innovate. You kind of think outside the box and you bring stuff to the table that might get frowned upon, and then you refine it until it becomes something great.
What was your first Fender experience, Billy? What was your first coveted instrument that you desperately wanted, or you had to save up for, you had to wait for? What was that journey for you?
It's actually funny because when I started, I didn't even put those things together. You know, I came from a large retailer here in the States, working for them and working with all of the different brands. And then when I had this opportunity to join Fender, I jumped on it. And then I realized when I went back and looked at old photos and went through my guitar collection, I bought a Squier Strat when I first started playing guitar. I went out and bought a Squier Affinity jazz bass because I would switch instruments with my other bass player and guitar player in our band that we were in. And then my first acoustic was a D11E Fender Dreadnought. And I looked at it and I was like, I guess it was just meant to be. Those were my first 3 guitars that I ever purchased on my own. And I started at 16 years old playing, and those are still, I mean, they're stickered from touring with them. Those are my babies. Those don't go anywhere.
Just the thing I love the most about Fender is the indestructibility of it. You know, I remember I had a friend called Tim who was in a band, and he had a black Squier Strat, and I just remember coming out of the gig once and into the car park, and he didn't even have a case for it. It was just sort of standing against the truck, and then it sort of fell over, and then he just picked it up and threw it in the back of the car, and I was like, you can't do that. You actually can, you know, to a degree with a Fender. And is it true you have a degree in firefighting, Billy? Just to run some. Is that true?
I do. In my early days, when I was a young buck in the industry, just starting out, I was actually going through the program, the fire technology program in school, and got all the way through to get my degree. However, there was a different career path that I went on. It's crazy, but I was a couple weeks away from joining the fire academy before we had some, a recession in the States over here back in 2008. And they put a hiring freeze, and I kind of said, all right, then I'm going to, roll up my sleeves and make this industry part of my career path. And it's been great ever since. I mean, obviously it could have gone that way, but there's a lot of skills in there that you learn just in the schooling of it that you can translate, even if it's not running into a physically burning building. There's all kinds of managing stress and maneuvering and just there's a lot of good stuff. So yeah, it's crazy, but that's just wasn't the path for me.
That's it. That's what I thought as well. There must be transferable skills between, sort of running headlong into a fire and working at Fender R&D and sort of in product management and trying to work out how we're going to solve these problems and issues. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I find that just one more question about the different finishes and stuff. There's a different range of finishes. What are your favorites out of those? What sort of woods are we looking at on the tops and things? I think I've got an ebony fretboard on here, which is a particularly beautiful thing. What other woods are being used?
So the neck and the bodies are made out of mahogany, and then the tops are made out of spruce. And then what we really tried to do was your fretboard on the all Acoustasonics, it is ebony, but where we chose to kind of marry everything together was going with an ebony bridge and then using ebony knobs. And we just felt like that was a cool aesthetic for a more acoustic driven instrument to kind of make it feel more organic. And but even then it's super exciting too, because if you go to fender.com and you take a look, or I mean even Andertons carries them, there's within each body shape, the core colors that are offered really lend themselves to that instrument. And like you're holding the ocean turquoise, and over my shoulder is the Arctic white. Those are vibrant, out of the box of acoustics, typically colors. But we started this back in 2018 with our own, at a lower price point, the California series, where we started introducing color to kind of set the stage to say acoustics don't always have to be natural. Yes, most of the market tends to lend themselves to that black and sunburst, and that's great, and we embrace it, and we've got those options within the Acoustasonic line. But where can we kind of continue to go outside the box? And ever since then, and even launching the Acoustasonic stuff, it's been great because you've been able to see acoustic players adopt colors where they still have the organic, natural look of the mahogany and the ebony, but they kind of get a little pop of flair just with the color scheme on the top.
It is. You're right. It's just so beautifully put together. You know, the bridge. It's like real luthier material, isn't it? It really is. Yeah. It's a very high quality instrument. It's utterly gorgeous. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Billy. I hope you have had a good Acoustasonic Jazzmaster launch day. And thank you very much. The UK pricing, I think, and stop me if I'm wrong, I think the American Acoustasonic Jazzmaster, the RRP in the UK is 1879.
Correct.
And it is available and available at Andertons as well. And as I say, you can click on the things on the screen there. You can click through to buy as well. I'm sure they're going to sell like hotcakes. And Billy Martinez, the fire department's loss is the guitar player's gain.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very much for joining us, Billy. I hope to meet you one day. Thank you very much for doing that today.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
So there you go. We've done it all together as colossal guitar heads. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I hope you did too. Thank you so much to everybody who took part, to Grant Nicholas, Declan McKenna, to Brian Swerdfager, and to Billy Martinez as well. Thanks to you for watching and for contributing as well. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of the evening. Happy Acoustasonic Jazzmaster Day.